episode tambiike
tukomyewo kakati ntera nnyo bagamba nti nyumirwa nnyo omuntu bwe mba nsomesa n'okwata ekkalaamu eyo yonna gy'owangaalira osobola obifuna naye bw'oba ogenze ku YouTube osobola oteekamu farm news desk oba n'oteekamu living agriculture oba n'oteekamu yisa lwigale ku YouTube zijja kuyiika kati gwonoonyemu kyoyagala naye ekirwadde ky'ekibumba ekirwadde ky'ensigo eddagala weeriri onywera ennaku 14 14 days kati gwowa ulcers onywera 4 days bano aba prostate 7 days ab'ebizimba 10 days ulcers I mean diabetes oba sukaali 14 days pressure 14 bwekifo kirina okutambula liri wansi nnyo naye nga byempandiika mubirabi owedde okoze eki owedde era naawe ongamba nti tompulira kati awo oba ompulira muzeemu eddagala ly'ekibumba ery'ensigo ery'ebizimba tulirina era ng'omuntu bw'oyo malina ekizibu ky'ekibumba ennaku 14 14 days ng'okiggala. Simanyi prostate mwaba abasajja abawoza mbo temusala kkubo, simanyi mutwala eddakiika 3. Amanyi beekwasa muze golaba bwengenda enamboole okusamba omupiira ate eddakiika 3 nga leefa lyafuuwa. Obadde oyagala kumala mmeka? Lutalo oba oli
the sectarian enclave economy of the British, of the 3 C's and 3 T's, our ideas was a disaster for the majority of the people. You want proof? It was clear. Just look at the infant mortality rate in 1962 and the average life expectancy in 1962. There were 128 per 1,000 live birth mortality rate in 1962, and life expectancy and the average was 46.8 in 1962 for everybody on the average per 1,000 live birth. We soon grasped the importance of having vertically integrated and horizontally integrated national economies. In the 20 years of chaos between 1966 and 1986, our views were eventually crystallized into the 10 points program of Kanyara. Kanyara was where we wrote this document in 1984. Point number 5 of those 10 points ran as follows, in quotes: building an independent, integrated, self-sustaining national economy. However, for the people to participate in the vertical and horizontal integration of the economy of the country, they had to join the money economy first and move out of the traditional pre-capitalist economy of working for a chida chonka, working only for the stomach, just subsistence. Since my nomadic family, because my family was nomadic, since my nomadic family had migrated from Tungamo to Nyabushozi, it was the good luck of Nyabushozi that we started our activities there. These activities involved sensitizing the population of the cattle corridor to stop nomadism, make enclosures around their land, Sengenge, engage in commercial agriculture with the Chivaro, Chura, Aymar, cultivation for profit and maximum returns. You can see in the videos, let them show us some of the families we started with, if they are there on the videos, their testimony.
Amazina gange Esther Magaga witu nahan waheta Gwengwe Nshweringi hampa treje ho gwankaga ne tanwa hampa erienskonka bakandi bagete mpango keri empango nese eteine bhinje teine keri emburare ry'ikishaka twata home kutwabe turi umuntu risa turinko twaterinka bakara mujya mbwe president ayijomu ari ngusenya ya mukaga yataya yo makagaitu tukugira ngo akataragira ngo naragira akari umwana wishomero tukanto mukiza n'imyaka namuna ninje mukize ubundi aha ninje mukize kandi mukize emyaka akatusomesa ari umwana yatusomesa okutura okuhinga okuombeka amaju gatakugira ngo n'amabati agagutwayombekere bwanyuma g'ebihome okuba batuuza omunsi okurera kuzengerera okurera kutasya kutwabanda nambwine nkaitwe nkanya nkenjo yange ekeha kyekutasya kanyabihara konka yatutanga yatwegesa ebintu birungi yatwegesa okushitama yatwegesa okutura yatwegesa twaba abantu mbwine kuko abantu babaire abari kumanya bukuru ko babaire bari itwe tukatari nk'abakaramogi kandi nakigamba matukatari nk'abakaramogi hakabakaramogi bakabaturana bafuruka nambwine abo mpurira ngo abegesa abandi akabareta mpani mpurira nabo nubagambira ururimi rw'abantu nuwe atikiza no kuturkushoku no kutuyimikono nuwe ataine kakwate nangu no kuba umuntu nakwentukandi tumukize emyaka itwe tukandi tumukize emyaka hari hata nangu nimukira n'ubundi yampa hati kuyahereze kutwegesa ebintu ebyo kutwayega kutwayombeka amaju g'ebihome kutwaba abatuze kutwarera kufuruka kutwahinga yarigera omukishaka yayongeraho cya kabiri yayongeraho twatunga enjungu yayongeraho obwenge bwo kugemura
ntukama rutabishatu buri izooba aritemwe negura shilingi rwenda kuri kubazamu buri izooba n'emitwaro 28 ko kubazamu mu kwezi nizo miliyoni 8 n'esente zikushagamu
yayongeraho twayombeka amamarungi nambwe n'ekyanga kitwe ekyo n'ekindi kweraho ahakanisa yitwe rigarukira hindugarukira n'ahandi ahinda arabira obumbaire nyina amani omutambana icyanga kitwe no kurugaha kwikarisha kufika hindugarukira tarobana ku ngo abana bana kuntu bateze impicengaro tubarho nutimba rero kandi kangenda ebyo byona nuyabigisi hangeri turumweri turukuzanda mwirhirhirhir haija masomo nkanye kuteresa mu nemyaka yanje.
So there you have the testimony of some of the families we started with in 1966, end of year. That old lady was speaking in Nyankore, and she said that when we came to teach them in 1966, we were students having finished A-level, and we told them to stop. She was saying that they were like the Karamojong. Atkatu nkaba koromuishu. Nomadic. And if you read our booklets, if you are polite, if you singamwe towazako, if you can make yourself a bit humble to learn from smaller people like us, then you will see how we argued with those traditional people to stop from nomadism, stop nomadism, and have settled agriculture, grow crops, and so on. Now, she was saying that because of the insecurity, we had to go away to fight. But when we came back, 1986, we added the issue of going now, not only just being settled, but being settled and also doing commercial agriculture with the Chivaro. That's why we advised them to go into dairy farming, because dairy farming was more for smallholders and medium people. It was better than beef ranching. Beef ranching needs more land. Now, that model, which started in the Nyabushozi area, has spread to the whole cattle corridor south of the Nile. There's a man called Matongo in the Ngoma area. Let's see what he says.
amazina ninjye George Matongo wa Ngoma Ngoma w'untu hano gwatakashozi n'undi kutaha umurimo gwanjye ndi muri isa nteze umujya kureba nuko itandikira tatakanda gente bakubya talobo nkagwakidana Meirisa zakanya nagura amataka nyuse nazo zankorera ibintu kwenda zashubiza abana bihereze naturu kabanza mu nyankore naje nahindura nk'umwata ngo njungu nuko zahangiranye natunga batuzungwe zo ndisumute.
On our farm, we collect over 900 liters of milk per day, and a liter costs 800 shillings, which is approximately 21 million per month.
So now this is now another side of the cattle corridor, Ngoma, Nagaseke district. But the cattle corridor is continuous from the border with Tanzania in Isingiro all the way up to northern Uganda. But much of the work we have done so far was in the south of the Nile, from River Kajera up to Chiriandongo. They have all changed. Now that man is in Goma area. The infrastructure is not so good, but you can see they are having a lot of money. That particular one is selling 900 liters of milk per day. The price is low, it's not high, but they still get 21 million shillings a month. You can see that girl there, she's educated because of the money which the parents have to pay for her in the schools. And they have moved from the other small houses which the old lady was showing you to now permanent buildings to live a better life. Now, that is the testimony from the cattle corridor. That's why this time really I am no longer interested in non-performers. Between 1986 and 1989, we campaigned for prioritizing the enterprise of dairy farming for the small and medium farmers, while the big players could continue with the ranching for beef. By 1995, the cattle corridor had started changing. People getting income per month from the milk, building better houses, paying school fees for children in paying schools. Indeed, our late Magaga is the husband of the other lady who you saw, and father of Lieutenant General Kavu. Is here? Is he here? He's a big general now. Oh, you can see how big he is. There he is. Now, their family, the wife so, and the husband who died. Indeed, our late comrade Magaga, the father of Kavuma, came to me and told me that he did not know what to do with the money. When they started getting money from the milk, he couldn't believe it. He came to me. You are people really, once you say you are a leader, you are putting a problem on yourself. If you don't become a real leader, God will not like you. I can assure you of this. Either you lead or you stay in your home. Don't try to be a leader when you are not, when you don't care about the people. So Magaga came and said, a citizen should be hindered because the milk people are paid every 15 days they are paid. And this had never happened in Magaga's life. She had never seen it. That a villager is being paid every 15 days, being paid money. Being paid every 15 days. Nka owo mushara. That's what he told me. As if I am working in a government office and being paid a salary. That was the tragedy of Uganda at that time. Only the civil colonial servants could get regular income. This change in the cattle corridor by the traditional families of Abatasoma, because these people had never gone to school. Magaga had never gone to school. His wife had never gone to school. To change Abatasoma, the ones who never went to school, was engineered by us, was against the advice of the professionals. Professionals did not believe we could change these people. They would tell me, "You are wasting your time. Those Banyankore cannot change." They were all saying to a man that the Banyankore could not change from their pre-capitalist lifestyle to a money economy. Moreover, when we were doing this, nobody among the colonial elite would agree to support us. It is only Mzee Byanyima who gave us 20 shillings. With my colleague Mwesugwa Black, who died in 1972 in our wars, we used, the only person who helped us gave us 20 shillings. That's about $3. $3. Just short of $3. Because a dollar that time was 7 shillings, a dollar. So $3 would be 21 shillings. So when we went to say we are going to mobilize the Banyankore to stop nomadism, other people refused to help us. Museveni gave us 20 shillings. With my colleague Mwesugwa Black, who died in 1972 in our wars, we used 7 shillings per person to use Mongonya's bus from Baraturshere through Ruhumba. That was 14 shillings. So out of our 20, we used 14 to come from Baraturshere. 2 of us, each one 7 shillings. Mwesugwa was a smoker. So he took away shillings 120 to buy a packet of Sportsman. That left us with 4 shillings 80 cents. After holding public meetings at Rushere, we used the Bazarona bus to a place called Katongole, each using shillings 1 shilling and 20 cents. That is 2 shillings and 40 cents. In the Katongole area, we started moving on foot up to near Nama, where we spent the night leaning against the harvested millet. When we spent one of the nights, we spent it leaning against the millet of one of the peasants called Chankuru. Millet is very comfortable when it is not threshed, when it is in the sheaves. After addressing a public meeting at Nama, the group gave us bicycle rides to Mzee Bitasene's place near Wamasha Dam. Moving on foot, we addressed meetings, including a mega one at where there is Karo Secondary School now. You should have seen the grandfathers and other adults listening to these young people. I was just 22 years old that time, and Mwesugwa was just slightly older than me. Thereafter, we moved on foot out of Mzee Tanyoka's home that we had made our camp and spent the night at Rushere with Mzee Mhinga. Thereafter, our remaining 2 shillings and 40 cents could only take us up to Nyakasharara. And from there, we walked on foot all the way to Mbarara, spending the night at my kurar in Akairungu near Biharu and Mbarara area. It was now 1967, January, and it was time to take up our temporary teaching jobs and get our own money to easily support our voluntary struggle for our people. Therefore, when I hear leaders talking of allowances to reach their people and get them out of poverty, I almost get nausea. I feel like vomiting. If you don't know, when I look at you, the way you do things, I really feel very, not pleased, but out of politeness, I've been keeping quiet. But now I'm telling you. Even those who get government allowances do not go to the field. I hear that many just stay in Kampala. Another mistake is for leaders to give personal money to constituents. As you can see here, we had no money to give to anybody. The only money we had, even when we started getting our own salaries, was for bus transport. Most of the time, I would ride the bicycle from Kazo to Burunga, from Burunga to Rakitura and back. The only fuel I needed was no fat on my body. So now you hear a problem. Murka chief needs a motorcycle. Motorcycle for what? Let the Murka chief ride a bicycle. I'm really sick and tired of that parasitism. And that's why I told you that this is Iksanja, no more sleep. Because I've been polite, talking, thinking that people will learn by example. No. This is the time to talk straight to everybody. Why should the Muruka chief have a motorcycle, fuel, money? Let him use a bicycle. It is better for him. He will live longer if he rides a bicycle. Even a Gombora chief, the Gombora is not so big. Why should we have fuel, all that? Work can't be done because there is no money for fuel. The only fuel I needed was no fat on my body. We would share food and accommodation with our hosts, the population. God has kept me here, and I'm now 82 years old, almost, not exactly, but almost. In spite of the efforts we expended in the resistance, the most important contribution to the people of the Cattle Corridor was diagnosis of their problems and the prescriptions we offered. Because these people had no money to give them. The only thing we gave them was a correct analysis, diagnosis, and a prescription. They were enough to arouse their enthusiasm and expectations. That was the reason they massively joined the young party we formed in 1980, known as UPM, after the parties were again allowed to exist. No money given to them, but accurate analysis and prescription that was a projected solution. And also reaching them. You can imagine a 22-year-old children calling adults, grandfathers, and they come to these meetings. By 1986, the production of milk in Uganda was 200 million liters per annum. It is now 5.4 billion liters, saving US dollars 1.56 billion of imports and earning US dollars 285 million in export earnings. So this work we did not only help these cattle raising families, but saved Uganda the import bill of $1.56 billion. If we were importing all this milk, Uganda would be spending $1.56 billion. Additionally, Uganda is earning now $285 million in export earnings. Uganda used to import tinned condensed milk from as far away as New Zealand, packed pepper milk from Kenya, butter, cheese, yogurt, powdered milk, etc. from Denmark, etc. Uganda now is a big exporter of all those products. That is our work. The people in the cattle corridor need to deepen their work by going away from Oksetura, free range, to growing pasture and indoor feeding of cattle, goats, and sheep. The only people who indirectly helped us in this were the late King Gasionga and some community leaders like Eliazari Bitembe, who had mobilized the Banyankore to come back from where they had been dispersed by the spread of the tsetse flies following the invasion of tsetse flies from Karagwe, Tanzania in 1918 and after. To be saluted in particular is President Eisenhower of the United States, who deployed USAID to spray against the tsetse flies in 1958 using a chemical known as diedrine. When President Clinton visited us in March 1998, I wanted him to visit the cattle corridor and see the outcomes of the good the USAID had done. However, his people preferred to take him to Mukono to see pancakes. So I wanted him to go and see this work, but his people said, no, you go to Mukono and see pancakes. So they went to see pancakes. Even me, I went with them. Ever since the coming into power of the NRM, we have eradicated the tsetse flies in Ichiboga, Ngoma, Busoga, Lango, etc. With the shift from Uksetura, free range, to indoor feeding of the dairy and beef cattle, and stopping the primitive practice of property fragmentation after the death of the head of the family, Uganda will overtake countries like the Netherlands, Australia, Argentina in production levels of dairy products, beef, leather, etc. After this success, I started inviting delegations of leaders from other parts of Uganda to visit and learn. This is where the question of no more sleep, no more kukongora, no more kugumaza, no more kuhenda, no more politeness to non-performers comes in. Because I would invite leaders, come please and see. This area was like this. We have now moved it, it's moving like this. And they would visit. My expectation was that they would go and try to do the same in all our areas in Uganda. The county of Nyabushozi each day delivers to the factories and milk coolers 1.15 million liters of milk per day. That's county alone. There are 115 milk coolers in Nyabushozi alone, mainly private. And there are now 160 milk and milk products factories in the whole of Uganda. Having succeeded in the Nyabushozi-Kazo area, and having been inviting delegations after delegations in 1995, I made a countrywide tour on exactly this point. I studied the whole country, and I recommended the two modes of agriculture: intensive agriculture for people with small pieces of land, and extensive agriculture for people with big pieces of land. In the 1996 manifesto, we reduced it into the 4 acres model with 7 activities for intensive farming and for other products for the plantations and the big farmers with big pieces of land. With 4 acres or less, you could engage in zero grazing for 1 acre of pasture with 8 Frisian cattle, 1 acre of coffee, 1 acre of fruits, 1 acre of food for the family, poultry for eggs and piggery in the backyard, and fish farming near the wetlands. With large farming,
The global AI market is projected to reach $1.770 trillion by 2032. Do you have the skills needed to seize this opportunity? Build a rewarding career in AI with the postgraduate program in AI and machine learning, business applications. Take the first step towards AI mastery. Apply now.
What are your thoughts on fluoride in our water?
No one is saying if you drink 1 glass of fluoridated water, you're going to have long-term effects. There are concerns with neurotoxicity and IQ drop, and the IQ drop that was shown in the literature is on par with lead. Everyone will say dose makes the poison, but here's what they're missing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Save Yourself podcast. I am so excited to have Dr. Stacy Whitman here with me today. And before we dive into all of the things we want to talk about, I wanted to give you a little background of her. We're going to be talking about fluoride. We're going to be talking about nutrition and the oral health part of it. We're going to be talking about perimenopause, all the things. I'm so excited to have her here. Dr. Stacy is a leading authority in functional dentistry. She's on a mission to revolutionize oral health care. She has a unique blend of scientific expertise and compassionate care, and she's dedicated to creating cavity-free world. That's cool. And she's board certified in pediatric integrative dentistry and naturopathic dentistry, and is one of the only dentists in the world to have her functional medicine certification from the Institute of Functional Medicine. She's founded one of the leading functional pediatric dental offices in the country, where she takes whole body and holistic approach to her care. And she's a co-founder of the Institute of Functional Dentistry, launching in summer 2025, and lectures globally on all of these things. You have like an amazing, huge bio, but mostly you're really into the oral microbiome, which I love, hormone health, which I love, nutrition, which I love, sleep, which I love, and airway health. And you're a big expert and educator with a heavy focus on preventative dentistry, cavity arrest, and remineralization. You are creating happy teeth and happy lives. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to unpack all the things. It can be very layered, so we can cover as much as we have time for. I'm excited for it.
All right, let's start with maybe the big controversial topic. What are your thoughts on fluoride in our water?
Yes. So I always like to start by saying I was traditionally trained, as every dentist and every physician was, right? And so I was trained that water fluoridation and just fluoride in general is the gold standard for cavity prevention. I used to be a huge advocate for water fluoridation. In fact, I live in Portland, Oregon, where the water is not fluoridated. And the last time it was up on the ballot was in 2012. And I actually volunteered and picketed for the pro side. And it was because in hindsight, I had never read the research, taken the time to understand any of the controversy, nor had I even heard of any of the controversy. They do not teach any of that in school. And so if you're not exposed to it, you wouldn't know what questions to ask. So I was at a debate for this ballot measure, and I was sitting on the pro side, or those that advocated for it. I don't love pro and anti language, to be honest with you, but I definitely was judging those with concern, and in my mind thinking tin hat brigade, conspiracy theorists. And I sat there and I listened to the debate, and I was blown away. The people who spoke were highly educated, thoughtful, genuine, research-backed, and brought up all of the concerns with water fluoridation, which can include thyroid health issues, gut microbiome dysbiosis, oral microbiome dysbiosis. It's considered a neurotoxin, fluorosis of the teeth and the bone, and beyond. So I then did my due diligence, and I started to unpack. And again, this was almost 15 years ago. Started to unpack some of the science, and it didn't take very long. If you take a stance that the do no harm stance, or that the burden of proof should be on the safety of something, it didn't take long for me to switch my mind and change my mind. And of course, that comes with extreme controversy. Now, flash forward to current day now, and there's copious data to show that systemic fluoride ingested, and that means water fluoridation, fluoride supplements, things that we swallow, they're concerning and can be detrimental. Number one, what's important to know is fluoride works primarily topically, not systemically. And this has been shown over and over again in the data. And it's even taught in dental schools, okay? But yet we still participate in this antiquated practice. And so there was a federal trial, the TASCA trial, and it was essentially the people versus the EPA. And it was an ongoing trial for about 7 years. And so last fall, finally, the federal judge made the verdict that there's an unreasonable risk to current water fluoridation practices. And the concern is, especially during pregnancy and those first 1,000 days or those first 3 years of life in children during active brain development, there are concerns with neurotoxicity and IQ drop. And the IQ drop that was shown in the literature is on par with lead.
So crazy.
It's crazy. And so you would think at least this should give us pause. But instead, what's happening is people are trying to disprove this science, okay? And these are meta-analyses, there's systematic reviews. There was the new Cochrane Collaborative that came out, which is generally considered the gold standard of reviewing medical research and data. That newer analysis of water fluoridation came out just last year in 2024, and it showed that water fluoridation is not as beneficial as we once thought. It only is reducing decay by 3%, which is about 1/4 a cavity per person. But yet you'll still see the American Dental Association and mainstream media referencing the old Cochrane Collaborative report from over 10 plus years ago, which shows 25% reduction. So if you see that stat, that is old data and it is not updated. And so a 3% reduction in cavities is not statistically significant. So, is water fluoridation even helping? And my argument would be no. And people will fight back on that. But again, we know that cavities are not from lack of fluoride. Cavities are from our diet, our nutrition, our lifestyle factors, how we're breathing, our hygiene. No one's fluoride deficient. The human body suffers from no fluoride deficiency. That's not a diagnosis. And truly, patients should have a choice, right? So when our water is fluoridated, you lose autonomy, you lose consent. And we know that topical fluoride is what works. So if someone really wants to use fluoride to help reduce cavity risk, and what fluoride does topically is it makes your teeth more acid resistant. So the effects of pH changes are less damaging. Then use it topically, use it in toothpaste, use it in rinses, ideally spitting. But why are we subjecting the populace to this practice? And over 70% of the United States is fluoridated currently. And it's unfair to expect people to have to purchase reverse osmosis filters, if they choose not to have fluoride in their water, to remove it. And then, some will argue, well, just have them drink bottled water, but that comes with issues and expense and microplastics. And so that's just not the solution. And what people do not realize, many, is that we're one of the last countries in the world to fluoridate our water. So most of the rest of the developed world has either never implemented water fluoridation or has removed it. And so we're in this period of time now where there is a shift, and we are seeing some states stepping up and banning it, and there's more discussions around it. Unfortunately, it's become incredibly political, like everything right now. And those of us who have been speaking about this for years before any administration was even present, are getting criticized for that. And so we all need to just take a step back and just look at the data and the science. And again, when I'm an advocate for children, and I can't look a parent in the eye and say, this may not damage your children's brains. I can't, there's no data, there's no safety data. It just really got grandfathered in before evidence-based medicine. And so we really update our practices.
No matter what the season, we are all so busy. And so if you're craving a real reset, a lot of us, including myself, know the research behind fasting, but fasting is really hard. And so there's new research out of USC where you can do fasting mimicking diet. So that's what Prolon is. It's Nobel-winning science looking at things like moving metabolic age, looking at weight loss, looking at clarity, reset, autophagy, all the things that we really want from an actual reset, not a typical cleanse. I love Prolon. I've done it a few times, usually at the beginning of the year. I did it actually this past year at the very beginning of the year, and it was challenging, but such a great reset for my body. Are you ready for your own reset? Because for a limited time, Prolon is offering Save Yourself listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you sign up. So subscribe to their 5-day program. You just have to visit prolonlife.com/Dr. Amy. So it's PROLON life, life.com/Dr. Amy, DRAMY to get your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/Dr. Amy. Yeah. So I started to get really interested in fluoride because one of my old mentors that I did research with when I was in college did research on lead and a lot of other heavy metals. And he started to get interested in this fluoride story. And he became, he started to do research. This was like 20 years ago. And he's one of the top lead researchers in that world of fluoride. And he said, kind of echoes what you're saying, is like, I think the problem is that not only does it give you very marginal benefit for cavities, there's now good data that especially in pregnant women, that like neonate, like that first 1,000 days, it has a measurable detrimental effect. And I think that is something that can't be argued. That part is like very clear in the research. What's the controversy, I guess, is my question.
Well, there's a lot of industry involved. I mean, I'm sure very similar to the American Medical Association, the American Dental Association does have ties to fluoride manufacturing. I mean, why hasn't the ADA come forward and said, gosh, I think we got this wrong. Let's reassess the data. It's really disheartening and disappointing. I think there's a lot of money behind it. So some people may not know, where does the fluoride come from? So the fluoride in our water comes from the phosphate fertilizer industry. It's called hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's a byproduct of the phosphate fertilizer industry. It is considered a biohazard and it's very expensive to dispose of. But when diluted and put into our municipal water supply, it is deemed safe. Okay. And everyone will say dose makes the poison, but here's what they're missing. They're missing cumulative effects. No one is saying if you drink 1 glass of fluoridated water, you're going to have long-term effects. This is, the rain barrel effect, if you will. The other issue many don't realize, it's very hard to titrate and keep at an accurate level. And I've spoken to many people that work in municipal water supplies who agree with this. It's a biohazard. It's toxic. They have to wear protective clothing when they're around it, and again, people say, well, but that's in concentrate when it's diluted. But what's the halo effect? So you may drink a glass of water a day during pregnancy, and I may drink 3 liters of water a day. The American Academy of Pediatrics suggests pregnant women drink 2 to 3 liters a day. What the data is showing is much over 1 liter of water, you're in danger zone. And there's even some implications that even at 1 liter or less there can be, because again, we're all bio-individual and how we metabolize and detox is different. The other thing that's missing from this conversation is the EPA is ignoring their own margin of safety. So the margin of safety for fluoride, and this was an EPA expert under oath that stated this during that TASCA trial, said the margin of safety needs to be 10x, okay? We currently fluoridate at 0.7 milligrams per liter. Most of the data will show at 1.5 milligrams per liter, there is significant concern. So the pushback is people will say, well, that's twofold the concern. Although there is data to show at 0.7, there's concern too. That tends to get buried and not discussed. But even, let's just say at 1.5 milligrams per liter, that's our area of concern. That is nowhere near a 10x. A 10x would then mean we need to be at 0.15 milligrams per liter, and we're at 0.7. And this is to protect vulnerable populations. This is why the EPA has a margin of safety. Who are the vulnerable? Pregnant women, infants and children, and with fluoride specifically, people with kidney disease, people with calcium and iodine deficiencies, people with genetic polymorphisms, and people with fluoride sensitivity or allergy, and that does exist. So again, it seems common sense to me, but I feel like we've lost common sense in a lot of topics these days. and at the very least, again, I think we should just pause and say, it's a risk v benefit issue, right? But we're not doing that. We're pushing forward, and people are very resistant to even having the conversation. And if you have the conversation, you're lumped into the group, just as I lumped those people as I sat there in that audience and listened to the debate I was judging. And so it takes an open mind to look at some of these things and to admit we got some things wrong. But I think we should look to other countries, and there are other ways that we could prevent decay in our population. And water fluoridation is a failed practice. Cavities and gum disease are the top chronic disease in the United States. And we've been fluoridating our water since the 1940s. So by the time someone's an adult, between 80 and 90% of the population have suffered from dental decay. That is not impressive to me. So I think we can do a lot better. And this comes with education in programs that actually work, and so I'm hopeful that being on platforms like this, thank you, it just helps educate the public to advocate for themselves more. And it will be just interesting to see where this goes.
As a physician, one of the most frustrating things is when a patient says that they went to the pharmacy to get the prescription that I had decided along with them that would be appropriate for them, but they didn't pick it up because it was too expensive. Well, Super Plus RX is here to fix that. Well, thank God for Super Plus RX. This is like the undo button of these scenarios. You can save up to 85% on your prescriptions. The cool thing is I have patients that have insurance, that don't have insurance, that have high deductibles, all of them can use Super Plus RX. And what I love about the company is that it's family owned and it's very transparent. This is not a trick. It's not a one-time thing. This is something that really works. And yes, it works at your local pharmacy, CVS, Kroger, Walmart, et cetera, et cetera. So stop overpaying for your prescriptions. Go to super.com/RX right now to see how much you can save. That is super, super.com/RX. Go there and see how much you can save right now. Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think once you realize what I think taking the politics out of it, I think it's pretty clear that at least in certain populations, this can be, like you said, vulnerable populations are what we worry about. Yes, there's probably an issue in the general population. I mean, based on what we know, but especially those vulnerable people. So tell me about what fluoride does to the microbiome and oral microbiome, and in general, what we should be doing for our oral microbiome.
Yeah, great question. So this is the other controversy. So if you just do not want to believe the neurotoxicity aspect, for some reason, when you sometimes say the word neurotoxicity, people just get turned off by that. I don't know why, but let's just talk about the gut microbiome and the oral microbiome. So there's copious research to show that we know fluoride is antimicrobial. And dentists will tout that as a benefit, but here's the thing, it's not selective. So it is killing off potential pathogenic bacteria, but also our commensal and healthy bacteria. And then imagine ingesting that. So what is it doing to the gut microbiome every time you drink water or you cook with it? And this is going back to the halo effect, which I didn't finish that thought. So you may drink a lot more water a day than I do. And I'm also cooking with it, arguably showering and bathing with it. I also eat a lot of ultra processed foods, which contain fluoride. If there's water in the ingredient, it's probably fluoridated water. They're not using reverse osmosis in these factories. So ultra processed foods, a huge area where we can get fluoride exposure. Many people do not realize pharmaceuticals is one of the top places we get fluoride. So they add fluoride into many pharmaceuticals because it helps with bioavailability. Prilosec, SSRIs, if you can believe it. So that's interesting. Plus, in children, are they swallowing their toothpaste? Are they swallowing their mouthwash? All these fluoride varnishes and things. There's so much fluoride exposure in the general population. So what is that doing to the gut microbiome? And we all know, I hope by now, how important the gut microbiome is to every aspect of our health. And so that is a concern. And what can we do to boost our microbiome? So it's a lot of the same things that we do for the gut. So we want to be eating prebiotic-rich foods, okay? Eat the rainbow foods. We want to be eating fermented foods, ideally daily. We want to be avoiding strong antimicrobials and antiseptics. So that really potent mouthwash that burns your mouth, that is carpet bombing your oral microbiome. And there's data now to show patients that use these strong rinses are more likely to have cardiovascular issues and increased blood pressure, among other things. And why is that? Nitric oxide is a molecule produced by bacteria in the mouth, nitrate reducing bacteria, and they live on the dorsum of the tongue. And so if you are eradicating them, you will have less nitric oxide, and that can affect vasodilation. So people will have sexual health. I mean, it can lead to erectile dysfunction, as well as microbiome imbalances and then cardiovascular issues too. So that's a big deal.
What are the mouthwashes that people should be watching out for?
Yeah, so I would say like Listerine and Scope and chlorhexidine, actually, which is often prescribed to patients. You could argue there's a time and place for some of these things. So let's say you have severe acute periodontal disease. So if there are these virulent pathogenic bacteria that we're really